the brain of someone in love, and the brain of someone with obsessive-compulsive disorder on an fMRI scan are almost impossible to tell apart. Not metaphorically. This is actual data from the University of Pisa in Italy. And honestly, that's barely even the craziest thing science has discovered about your brain on love. Over the next few minutes, you're going to understand 3 things. Why heartbreak hurts almost exactly like physical drug withdrawal. Why you literally cannot see your partner's flaws, even when everyone around you can spot them from a mile away. And why so many relationships end right when they're actually beginning. Most of us grow up believing love is an emotion, something warm, romantic, somewhere near the heart. Neuroscience has some bad news for that theory. In 2005, biological anthropologist Helen Fisher at Rutgers University literally shoved 17 deeply in love people into an fMRI scanner. Then showed them photos of their romantic partners, alternating with photos of ordinary acquaintances. The result, when participants looked at their partners, 2 brain regions lit up like Times Square on New Year's Eve. The first, the ventral tegmental area, or VTA, a small cluster of neurons buried deep in the brainstem. This is the same region activated when you eat amazing food, win money, or use cocaine. Yeah, your situationship is sharing hardware with narcotics. Incredible work, evolution. The second region, the caudate nucleus. This area is responsible for goal setting, reward prediction, and motivating you to pursue something you want. And here's the important part. These are not emotional centers. They are motivational systems, the exact same circuitry pushing you to drink when thirsty, eat when hungry, or grab a blanket when freezing. Your brain does not categorize love as romantic emotion. It categorizes it as a survival need. That's why heartbreak feels like physical withdrawal. And why people in love will ride motorcycles through storms at 11 p.m., book 3 connecting flights, or do things that, in hindsight, feel deeply embarrassing. Like sending a "you up?" text at 2:13 a.m. and immediately throwing your phone across the room afterward. That's not weakness. That's your nervous system running legacy software from prehistoric humanity. And here's a quick self-test. The last time you were with that person, did you feel peaceful? Or did you just temporarily stop craving them? Your answer tells you what stage your brain is in. If this is already messing with your worldview a little bit, relax. We're just getting started. So what exactly is happening inside your head during all this? 3 chemicals, in a very specific order. Chemical number 1, dopamine. The moment you become attracted to someone, the VTA starts flooding your reward circuitry with dopamine. A lot of people think dopamine equals pleasure. Wrong. Dopamine equals wanting, motivation, craving. It doesn't make you happy because they're there. It makes you unable to tolerate when they're gone. Tiny distinction. Massive consequences. And it explains why early-stage love feels more like obsession than happiness. In 2024, Professor Zoe Donaldson at the University of Colorado Boulder implanted optical sensors directly into the nucleus accumbens, the brain's central reward hub, and measured dopamine release in real time, literally millisecond by millisecond, as subjects approached their bonded partners versus strangers. When approaching their partner, dopamine exploded so intensely that Donaldson described the sensors as lighting up like a rave. When approaching strangers, nothing. She called this the chemical signature of desire. The brain has biologically stamped that person directly into your reward system. Like your neural network basically said, "Congratulations. This human is now your entire personality." Chemical number 2, norepinephrine. This is a stress hormone, the exact same kind released when you're being chased by a dog or missing a major deadline. In love, it causes the racing heart, sweaty palms, and laser focus on one single person. Technically speaking, butterflies in your stomach are just a mild stress response. Romantic? Not really. Scientifically accurate? Painfully. Chemical number 3. And this is where things get weird. While dopamine and norepinephrine spike upward, serotonin, the neurotransmitter involved in mood stability, sleep, and appetite, drops dramatically. How dramatically? Psychiatrist Donatella Mariziti at the University of Pisa measured serotonin levels in 2 groups: people with obsessive-compulsive disorder and people who had recently fallen in love. Both groups showed serotonin levels roughly 40% lower than average. That's why early love destroys your sleep schedule, kills your appetite, and makes you think about someone during meetings where you absolutely should be paying attention. Your brain is operating in a state remarkably similar to OCD. Chemically speaking, love and obsession are not distant cousins. They're roommates. And if you're wondering whether you actually love that person, or you're addicted to the feeling of being loved, dopamine can't answer that for you. But here's a clue. If you can be alone and still feel emotionally okay, that's usually a sign of genuine attachment. If 5 minutes without a reply turns you into an FBI investigator analyzing punctuation marks, that's probably dopamine doing cardio. But if dopamine makes you crave someone, what happens when the brain decides to disable your ability to see their flaws? That's where things become slightly terrifying. This is the part where people look back at old relationships and think, how was I that blind? Answer, you weren't blind. Your brain turned the camera off. While the reward system lights up in response to your partner, the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for critical judgment, risk assessment, and detecting danger signals, becomes simultaneously suppressed. Research by Andreas Bartels and Samir Zeki at University College London showed that when people in love viewed photos of their partners, brain regions associated with social judgment and negative emotional evaluation measurably deactivated on scans. Your brain doesn't just make the other person feel special. It actively disables the alarm system normally responsible for spotting their flaws. This is not a design flaw. This is an intentional evolutionary feature. From an evolutionary perspective, if our ancestors carefully analyzed every red flag before bonding, humanity probably would be gone extinct a very long time ago. Your brain is running software written millions of years ago, during a period when bond first, analyze later was actually an excellent survival strategy. Good news. You're not stupid. Bad news. Your brain had plans for you from the beginning. And there's a practical application here. If you want a more objective read on someone you're romantically involved with, evaluate them when you're tired, hungry, or mentally occupied with something else. During those moments, the prefrontal cortex partially comes back online. You'll usually see more clearly. Kind of like your brain exiting delula mode for 5 minutes. So what happens if a relationship survives the obsessive early stage? This is where the brain switches operating systems. Phase 1 is dopamine-driven. High intensity, high obsession, high craving. After roughly 12 to 24 months, dopamine begins stabilizing, and 2 different hormones enter the picture: oxytocin and vasopressin. Oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone, is released through physical touch, eye contact, and emotionally intimate moments. It doesn't create craving. It creates safety. Vasopressin strengthens long-term commitment and prioritization of a romantic partner over others. A 2023 study from the Australian National University and the University of South Australia, involving 1,556 people in love, confirmed that what makes someone neurologically special is the simultaneous interaction of dopamine and oxytocin. Dopamine creates attraction. Oxytocin creates attachment. But here's the part neuroscience really wants you to hear. A huge number of relationships collapse exactly during this transition. When dopamine decreases and the excitement, intensity, and emotional chaos of early love begin fading, many people conclude, I guess I'm not in love anymore. When in reality, the brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do, transitioning from addiction to foundation. Understanding this doesn't guarantee any relationship will succeed, but it explains why so many people leave right when something real is finally beginning. Final question. And honestly, this is the one most people are waiting for. Is long-term love actually real? Or does the brain guarantee that everything eventually fades? First, the uncomfortable data. A 2024 study by Professor Zoe Donaldson at Colorado Boulder found that after bonded prairie voles were separated for 4 weeks, they still recognized each other upon reunion. But the dopamine surge had almost completely disappeared. Their brains processed former partners almost identically to strangers. Donaldson described this as a biological reset, a mechanism allowing the nervous system to recover and form new attachments after loss. In humans, we call this moving on, not emotional failure, just the brain doing its job. But here's the fascinating part. In 2023, Dr. Bianca Acevedo analyzed brain imaging data from couples who described themselves as still deeply in love after 10 to 25 years together. The result? Their brains weren't only activating attachment regions. The VTA, the dopamine circuitry, was still active. The exact same system associated with early-stage romantic love. Intense long-term love, neurologically speaking, is not a myth. It simply requires something difficult, transitioning from dopamine-driven craving into oxytocin-built attachment, while maintaining enough novelty, meaning, and emotional connection to keep the reward system alive. Put more simply, it's not about losing the spark. It's about changing the fuel source. And the human brain has been doing that for thousands of years. So erase what we know. Love is a neurological event. It is not romantic in the simplistic way most people were taught. It is far more powerful than that. The brain recruits the same systems involved in cocaine addiction, suppresses your judgment, lowers serotonin to near-obsessive levels. And if you're lucky, gradually transitions you into one of the most stable and beneficial states the human nervous system can experience. It isn't irrational. It's a program written millions of years before humans invented the word love. If you want to keep understanding what your brain is actually doing behind the scenes, the next video will cover the neuroscience of habits, why your brain resists change, and the only reliable way to break that cycle. Subscribe so you don't miss it. And if this video made you think of something, drop a comment below. I read all of them. Are you in love with that person? Or addicted to the feeling of being loved? Real question. Zero judgment. Comment below.